Pleasure to introduce once again this evening our dinner speaker. The Honorable J.B. McCuskey is the state's 35th Attorney General. McCuskey has devoted his life to public service, most recently serving 2 terms as West Virginia's State Auditor. Previously, he served 2 terms in the West Virginia House of Delegates while practicing law in Charleston. McCuskey earned a degree in political communication from the George Washington University. He earned his Juris Doctorate from the West Virginia University College of Law. McCuskey also worked as a civilian for the Department of Defense at the Pentagon in the offices of the Army and Department of Defense General Counsel. McCuskey is a native of Harrison County, West Virginia. His parents, John and Ann McCuskey, cultivated his deep love of the Mountain State and instilled in him the values of public service. They also instilled in him the value of family and his greatest accomplishment as being a husband and a father. McCuskey and his wife, Wendy, have 2 daughters. If not at the Capitol or traveling the beautiful state of West Virginia, you can often find McCuskey at a soccer field or a dance practice with his girls, on a run with their dog Pearl, or helping Wendy with her small business in Charleston. Please give a roaring Boys State welcome to the Attorney General of West Virginia, J.B. McCuskey.
Yeah, I don't know who wrote that intro. It's awesome. My wife would probably take umbrage with one part of that, which is I'm usually found on the golf course, much to her dismay, as opposed to at the house helping out. So how's everybody doing? Is this a good Boys State so far? So I just realized, when you get elected as a young politician, there becomes a day when you cross the Rainbow Bridge where you're not a young politician anymore. And I think this is my 9th Boys State that I've been at. So I can no longer, I don't believe, categorize myself as a young person anymore, but 9 times I've been here. And so I've been to Boys State pre-COVID, I've been to Boys State, I think, during COVID. I've been to Boys State when I was the auditor, and now I've gotten the opportunity to come see you guys as the Attorney General. And I'm going to talk to you guys about my office. And some of the topics, some of the things that we do in my office are pretty politically charged. And I'm going to talk to you guys like grown-ups because I think you guys are grown-ups. And what I need you guys to understand is you don't have to agree with me, right? You don't have to agree with my politics, and that's fine. And the reason why I'm sort of mentioning this, and I'll talk about it when I'm done talking about my office, is that we live in a world that it is becoming increasingly impossible for people to talk to each other that they disagree with. And it is not possible for our democracy, not in the country and not in our state, to survive if we continue to divide ourselves based on tribal sort of political instincts, right? No great problem in this country has ever been solved by 2 people that agreed with each other. If you think the founding fathers were sitting around agreeing on what the Declaration of Independence was supposed to read, I've got a piece of property on the ocean to sell you in Arizona. This country was built on vehement, sometimes almost violent political disagreement. And it was built on the idea that all of us believe that this is the greatest country in the history of this world, and that this is the greatest government that has ever been in the history of this world. And so we can all agree that America, and in my opinion, West Virginia, is the greatest place to live in this country. And we can disagree on how to make it better. But as long as we all have an understanding that we're all fighting for the exact same thing, right? We are fighting to make sure that every single person that lives on either side of you has an opportunity at a better life. And we can disagree on how to get there. We can disagree on the reasons or the policies on how to make that happen. But as long as we all agree that public service and leadership matter, and that this is the greatest place in the history of this world, then we can disagree on policy and walk out of this room still being great friends. And that is my single greatest ask of all of you, is that when you leave this week, find somebody that believes the exact opposite politics than you do. Make sure you get their phone number, make sure you get their email, and make sure they become your friend. Because no matter where you go in life, you're always going to need somebody who's going to check you. Somebody you can say, hey, This is what I'm thinking. This is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. And if you ask somebody that has the exact same belief system that you do, they're just going to tell you you're right. And I've built my life and I've built my office with a group of people who are willing to tell me that I'm wrong. And it's the only way that I know of to be successful. And so please, as you go on the internet, treat people with respect. Stand up for yourself, right? You don't have to kowtow to people. You don't have to say, oh, you're right, I don't want to get into this conversation. You can explain yourself, and you can stand up for yourself. But do it in a way that is professional. Do it in a way that is kind, and in a way that advances whatever the conversation that you're having. Because in this country right now, we're at a tipping point. We are truly at a tipping point, and the internet is not a real place. It's an awesome place to find memes. I happen to love the internet. It's one of my favorite places on earth. But it isn't real life. And we have an astronomical amount of public servants in this country who go on to Twitter and they base their decisions on likes and retweets. And what I'm here to tell you is there are no likes and retweets in a cornfield in Iowa. There's no likes and retweets in a coal camp in McDowell County. There's no likes and retweets at a maple syrup farm in Vermont or on a wind farm in California. What you find are American families who want their gas to cost a little less, their food to cost a little less, they want to be left alone a little bit more, and they want their taxes to be a little bit lower. And what they really want is they want to live in a country that they're proud of. And that is not found on the internet. And that is what 80% of this country is. And so the internet, fun place to go. But it does not represent what this country is about, and it does not represent who the people in this country are. So be very leery of that, and make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that you can disagree with agreeably. So, with all that being said, I am the Attorney General. It is the best job I've ever had in my entire life. It is the best job in state government. And so I'm going to talk to you guys about 4 cases that I have going on right now that I think will sort of give you an idea of what the Attorney General's office does. So the overarching idea of what the Attorney General is that I'm the lawyer for the government, I'm the lawyer for the people, and I'm the lawyer for our Constitution. And so there's really 3 things that I am responsible for. And so the first case that I'm going to talk to you guys about, and this is a very politically charged case, but it's going to be in the news soon, and it's something that was one of the greater experiences I've ever had in my life. So in 2020, West Virginia passed the Save Women's Sports Act. And what the Save Women's Sports Act did is it said that biological boys cannot play sports against biological girls. There are immutable physical characteristics that make it a lot easier. If we were to play girls' state in football, I think we would all understand that there would probably be a fairly significant difference in the outcome. So what our legislature said was we are going to take biological sex and we are going to use that as a delineating line in athletic competition. Once we passed that law, a lawsuit was brought by an athlete, a transgendered athlete, who said that that law was violating Title IX and violated the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. It is our office's job to defend the legislature's actions. It is our office's job to defend the legislature's constitutional authority to pass these kind of laws. This case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So in February of this year, I got to argue in the highest court in the land on behalf of the people of West Virginia in defending the Save Women's Sports Act. Now, I realize that this is a case that has an enormous political implication, especially for people that are a lot younger than me. But the important thing is that, and I think what's meaningful to me, is that we have taken the tack that, number one, the plaintiff in this case is a kid, right? The plaintiff in this case is not some kind of adult who has made all of these life decisions. We're talking about a 15-year-old kid. And so for me, it's very important to use the language that this person wants to be referred to by. There's no reason to be angry at this child because this child has a different opinion than I do. But it also doesn't mean that I can't go to the highest court in the land and say that I believe that the Save Women's Sports Act actually makes Title IX stronger, right? And everybody in here is a guy. Well, except for some of the counselors, obviously, right? But it wasn't that long ago that women in this country couldn't vote at all. It was in this century that women couldn't vote, right? And since Title IX's inception, what we found is that more than 60% of every single woman that has found their way into the CEO level of a boardroom or the highest levels in state and federal government, more than 60% of them played competitive sports in high school or college. Think about that. And what Title IX did is it opened up these opportunities for girls to go to college, for girls to study the same subjects that boys were studying. And I know this sounds like some kind of bygone era that you guys can't really comprehend, but we're talking about the 50s, right? This was when your parents were alive. And so it is real, actually my parents were alive, excuse me. Your parents are probably my age. I told you, I keep forgetting I'm not young anymore. The long and the short of it is that we were able to defend our state law in a way that we thought was very humanizing and cognizant of the political outcomes that were going to happen on either side. But that doesn't mean that I and my office don't believe very, very strenuously that we have the right side of this argument. So we'll find out on Thursday. On Thursday, we're going to find out one way or the other what the 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court said about this case. Should we be allowed to delineate athletic playing fields by biological sex? And if they say we can't, guess what? We will immediately abide by what the Supreme Court says. And that's a very, very important thing to remember. We live in a nation of laws. And just because I disagree with what the Supreme Court says, or if I disagree with what a district court says, or I disagree with what the Fourth Circuit says, at that point, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm allowed to disagree with them, but I'm not allowed to disagree with the law. Just because you don't think something is illegal doesn't mean you can do it, right? And we find ourselves in a country right now where people, they fight against our institutions as opposed to fighting against ideas. And that is also immensely dangerous, right? We have to abide by what the Supreme Court says. And to be fair, I'm pretty bullish about our chances. I think we're probably going to win. But I will check back with you guys if we get it. Are you guys coming on Thursday? Yeah. If it's Thursday when the thing comes down, you guys will be in my office in one of the more chaotic days of my life. It's going to be a wild day. It'll be something that'll be really cool for all the folks that are in the Capitol to see. So in that instance, that's where we represent the state, right? We're representing the state government. How many people in here play Roblox? How many of your little brothers and sisters play Roblox, I should probably ask. So, to anybody that plays Roblox, did you notice on January 1st of this year that the entire security platform of Roblox changed? Yeah. Well, that was because of me. So, Roblox had become a place where child predators lived. Roblox became a place where stuff that kids shouldn't be seeing was on in the world that Roblox created, right? It was a place that was unsafe for children. And I'm going to give you another example that's the exact opposite of this. So we sued Roblox. And I ended up in a boardroom with the founder and CEO of Roblox. And I said, look, man, I said, the children of West Virginia are being put in danger by your platform. There are child predators on your platform, and there are scenes that are being depicted within Roblox that kids shouldn't be seeing. My 8-year-old daughter plays Roblox all day, every day. My 11-year-old daughter has never picked up an iPad in her life. But my 8-year-old, that's what she does. She loves it. And it really is a remarkable place, right? It is a game that I don't mind her playing because it allows her to be creative. It allows her to communicate with her friends. It allows her to build her own worlds. It allows her to learn how to code and so many other wonderful things. And so I said to the CEO, I said, there's no way this is what you intended. And he said, it isn't. The guy that started Roblox is a little bit like Willy Wonka, right? He sort of created a world, this fantastic world that he believed in where kids could sort of be kids online. And they could build worlds and they could do all the things that kids want to do. And he said, how can I help? He said, I believe you. This is a problem. I don't want Roblox to be contributing to any of these problems. I agree with you, I believe you, and how can I help? And so instead of going through this long, protracted litigation, we ended up settling our case with Roblox. They paid us $13 million, but importantly, they built a first-in-class security protocol for all kids to get onto any online game. And I think the most important thing that they did is they open sourced the code that enables the facial recognition, et cetera, on Roblox, which means that every other online game in the country, if they choose to be as secure as Roblox, can use the code and build their own security platforms that are exactly like Roblox. That's what little old West Virginia did for all 50 other states. And there's now been, I think, 31 states that have copied our settlement since then. It's an incredible result. On the other side of that coin, we just recently sued Apple. Does anybody here have an iPhone? Does anybody here store pictures in the iCloud? So Apple bills itself as the most secure platform to download and store photographs. Secure being the most important word. In 2025, do you guys know what CSAM images are? So to people that don't, it's child sexually explicit material. And like I told you before, there's some things that I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you like grown-ups. There's a lot of predators in this world. And there's a lot of kids who are being abused, who are being sexually abused, and who are having pictures taken of them at the same time. It's a worldwide problem. In 2025, Meta and Google produced somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 million CSAM images to the FBI. 800 million. Apple produced 241. Apple believes that the security of their network disallows them from us going into their network and finding child predators and removing child sexually explicit material from their cloud. I disagree with them. Apple took a different tact. Apple didn't say, this is a problem, how can we help you? Apple said, lawyer up. And so we did. So we're the first state in the country to have sued Apple based on their inability and their unwillingness to meet our law enforcement officers halfway, to find the people who are abusing and taking kids and taking pictures of them and extorting them, and literally significantly more horrible things than that. And so we're getting ready to be in protracted, probably years-long litigation with the largest corporation in the history of the world. The reason those two cases are important is so those indicate that is me representing the people of West Virginia. All of you all are my clients. And so if there is a company that comes into West Virginia and is harming the people of West Virginia, be it a chemical company dumping stuff into the water, or an internet company violating your privacy, or an online game that's enabling children to do things or to see things or to be put into danger, it's my job to protect all of the people, all of the consumers of West Virginia. And the hardest part about that part of my job is I have to decide who are the good companies that made a mistake, right? The companies that come to me and say, I'm willing to meet you halfway, I'm willing to solve this problem with you. And the companies who tell me to sort of, you know what, and go you know where. And in this instance, Apple was the former and Roblox was the latter. So that is how our office makes sure that the consumers of West Virginia live and interact in a safe place, in a place where they can trust the companies that they're doing business with. The last part of my job is defending the Constitution. And what that means is, on both a federal and state level, the attorney generals of this country have been thrust into a role that we've never been placed before. That's Republican and Democrat attorney generals, all 50 of us. So we have a Congress, like I talked about before. How often is it that anybody in Washington makes a friend in the other party? Doesn't seem very often to me. And what's remarkable to me is that every senator knows that you got to get 60 votes to get anything done. They knew the rules of the game before they got started, right? And so now they come back to their districts and they say, well, I couldn't get enough Democrats to do this, or I couldn't get enough Republicans to do that. And they've become satisfied by proposing legislation as opposed to passing it. Because passing legislation involves finding people you disagree with, finding something you agree with them on, and making compromise. That hasn't happened in this country in a very long time. So an astronomical amount of the laws that happen in this country are changed and interpreted by attorney generals. The places where our Constitution gets upheld and changed are in the federal courts of this country by cases brought by the states. So the most important one of these cases that we have right now is called the New York Superfund case. So about 10 months ago, West Virginia sued New York. We also sued Vermont. We also sued California and Illinois, I think. But we have little old West Virginia here and big old New York over here. And the reason that we're suing New York is they passed a law in their legislature that says that we owe them $75 billion. So New York has determined that they have $75 billion worth of damage to their cities and their infrastructure because of climate change. And so what they've said is anybody who's ever mined a lump of coal, drilled an ounce of gas, or drilled a single barrel of oil owes them $75 billion. It is on us to balance New York's budget. And when I say us, these are our coal companies, these are our gas companies, these are our oil companies that are right here in West Virginia. And you might be somebody that completely disagrees with me on climate change. That's fine, right? We're allowed to disagree on these things. What I don't believe we can disagree on is this idea that states can reach into other states' pockets based on these, on unconstitutional thought process. You guys are going to learn about something called the Dormant Commerce Clause, right? Imagine if we did this to New York, right? Imagine if we said, we have 220,000 opioid addicts in West Virginia based on drug companies that are all found on Wall Street. And because all of these drug companies are on Wall Street, you owe us $500 trillion. It's not an outrageous number. It's really not. But that's unconstitutional. We cannot do that. And so it is up to all of us to fight for the underlying principles of what makes this country great, which is that each state gets to do what it wants as long as what it's doing isn't reaching into the pockets of the states around it. We have a national energy policy for a reason, and our lawsuit is designed to ensure that that policy is set in Washington and not in Albany, New York. And I'll tell you what's really interesting is you'd think that the New York lawyers would think, oh, it's just West Virginia. It isn't just West Virginia. We have an Attorney General's office in this country that punches far beyond its weight class. I would be willing to bet you that we have the best constitutional lawyers in the country and the most effective, the most aggressive, and the most successful solicitor's office, maybe in the history of our country's Attorney General's offices. And people are scared of us. And to me, I don't necessarily want people to be scared, but it gives me the peace of mind to know that we have earned the respect of people who have frequently overlooked us. And to me, that's a big deal. So I want to leave some time for you guys to ask some questions, but I want to leave you guys with this. So I got into public service, as you mentioned in my intro, because my parents were in public service. I grew up blessed. I grew up with two parents. I grew up in a house that was warm. I had 3 square meals a day. I had parents that made me do my homework, told me they loved me, helped me get at school, right? I was given every single thing a child could be given. But I was also given this idea that we live in a place that is the most amazing puzzle in the history of our country. I live in a place that is blessed with the most resources, the most beauty, the best location, and without question, the greatest people that have ever been. The people that live in this state have an uncommon humbleness and an uncommon desire to make sure that everyone around them is taken care of, even at the expense of themselves. I've been all over the world. It's not like this other places. But we're also blessed with is a state that has never reached the places that it should be. The success of our state has never matched the goodness of its people. And my parents have instilled in me my entire life that you were given all of these things, right? You were given access to these great educational opportunities and all these great athletic opportunities. It's your job to mirror those two things. Your only mission in life is to become a public servant and to do everything in your power to make sure that every single person that you share this amazing place with is given the same opportunity that you have. And we can disagree on how to get there, but I promise you we will never disagree on how important it is for us to take that journey. And so what I ask all of you is if you have an opportunity to be a public servant, take it. If you have an opportunity to stay in West Virginia, take it. If it looks like the easy path is to go somewhere else, I can assure you it is the easy path. And if you think you need to go to Charlotte or Raleigh or Dallas or wherever to do your job, you don't have to do that. If you go to Charlotte, Raleigh, Dallas, or wherever to go do whatever it is you think you need to leave to do, what that means is the thing that is there will never be here. You will be chasing an opportunity that people in West Virginia don't have. And everybody in this room is a leader. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And leaders don't follow. Remember that. Leaders do not follow. You don't have to be the Attorney General or the governor or a delegate or whatever it is to be a leader. Leadership is a micro thing. Be a leader in your own life. And if you're from Bridgeport, and you think you got to go to Raleigh to go be some kind of a whatever, it doesn't matter. What that means is that doesn't exist in Bridgeport. So what a leader does is they say, how can I do this where I am to affect the most people where I'm from? Because if you build that business, if you create that opportunity for yourself, you're also creating it for everybody else around you. And what we need is an army of young people who take that approach, who say, I am going to take the harder path because it's better for everyone around me. And I promise you, the person that cuts through those weeds with that machete the first time is going to be happier and more successful in the long run than the person that takes the easier path, the path that's already been blazed by somebody else. Because that's what's happened for far, far too long. And it's time for all of us to rise up and put an end to that right now. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity to speak. This is my favorite day of the entire year. I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you give me this opportunity. And I'd love to answer any questions you guys have.